Thanks for watching the video. This is a review of subordinate and independent clauses. Today our objective is to identify subordinate clauses and independent clauses. We're also going to classify them as being noun clauses, adverb clauses, adjective clauses, or elliptical clauses. Alright, so today's video is a little bit advanced. I would say that this video is useful if you have already mastered the basic definitions. If you're having trouble, or if this movie moves a little too quickly for you, you should watch some of the other videos where we talk about each one. So I'm going to go over this practice test, and I'm going to explain to you each one, and what's happening in each one, and how this test tries to trick you. Okay, so number one, the answer to this is that this is an adjective clause. So an adjective has several tasks in a sentence. Here are the questions that adjectives can answer. So an adjective tells us which one, what kind, or how many of a person, place, or thing is being spoken about. So in this sentence, we have the adjective clause, who carved that spectacular soapstone, dolphin, and whale. Now we don't even really need to read the whole sentence to understand that this is an adjective. Adjectives tend to begin, adjective clauses begin with what are called relative pronouns. Here are a list of the relative pronouns that you'll see in our examples. So if a clause begins with one of these words, it's very suggestive that it is an adjective. If we look at the relative pronouns, and we look at the questions that adjectives can answer, this becomes very clear. So words like that tell us which one of a thing that you're talking about, and words like which tell us which one. Who tells you what person you're talking about, so that's a which one, and same thing with whom and whose. So these relative pronouns really allow us to answer questions like which one or what kind. So that's why these things will begin with relative pronouns. So if we look at the sentence again, we clearly see that relative pronoun, who, which is also right there. So this is an adjective clause because it tells us which artist we're talking about. An Inuit man is the artist who carved that spectacular soapstone, dolphin, and whale. This tells us about the artist, and it begins with one of those relative pronouns. So in question 2, we have something else going on here. How high school seniors can choose the right college and apply for financial aid or work-study employment is the topic of tonight's presentation. This is a noun clause. This is a noun clause, and noun clauses have to function as one of the functions of a noun. So here are the different noun functions that are possible. Subject, direct object, indirect object, object of a preposition, predicate nominative. This noun clause is the subject of the sentence. Let's take a closer look. On a test, when they underline a clause, when a clause is underlined, and it consists of the words right before a verb, it's probably the subject of that verb. The way you can test that is ask yourself the question, what is the topic of tonight's presentation? Or what is doing the action of the verb? In this case, the verb is a state of being verb. It's a linking verb, so there's no action. So you ask yourself, what is in the sentence? And the answer to that question is how high school seniors can choose the right college all the way to the word employment. It is this underlined section. This is the topic. So that is the subject of the sentence. All subjects are nouns or pronouns, so this must be a noun, so it has to be a noun clause. Alright, so question 3. The giant panda is a finicky eater that prefers certain types of bamboo. This tells us more about the word eater, and the word eater is a noun. We know eater is a noun because it's the predicate nominative to this linking verb is. I can replace this verb with an equal sign. The giant panda equals a finicky eater. If I can do that, then that means that this is the same thing as the panda. And the word eater is a noun. It's a predicate nominative here, giving us another name for the giant panda. That means that these words describe a noun, because that prefers certain types of bamboo tells us what kind of eater we're talking about, which is one of the functions of an adjective. That makes this an adjective clause. Also, it begins with a relative pronoun. Relative pronouns begin adjective clauses. This one begins with a relative pronoun that. So the upshot is that this is an adjective clause. This clause in number 4 demonstrates why it's really important to first read all of the underlined words and decide whether or not it's even subordinate. The underlined words here are my brother investigated whether local businesses were complying with the Americans with Disabilities Act. This is not an adjective, noun, or adverb clause. This is an independent clause. In order to be considered one of these types of clauses, adjective, noun, or adverb, the clause has to be subordinate. This is independent, and we know that because all of these words, when read by themselves, could stand alone as a sentence. My brother investigated whether local businesses were complying with the Americans with Disabilities Act could stand alone as a sentence, thus it's independent. In order to be an adjective, noun, or adverb clause, the group of related words underlined would have to not be able to stand alone as a complete sentence. All right, number 5. This is an adverb clause. We can discuss it when you have more time. Adverbs describe verbs, adjectives, or other adverbs, and they answer these questions. These are the questions an adverb can answer. They can tell us how something is done, how much something is done, when something is done, where something is done, why something is done, to what extent something is done, or under what conditions something is done. Since they also describe adjectives or other adverbs, they can answer these questions about how, when, where, to what extent, or under what condition a description word applies. So that's also something they do. But they answer these questions. Adverbs begin with a subordinating conjunction. And here's a list of most of them. So if you want, you could pause the video now and you could copy all of the subordinating conjunctions. This is an adverb clause because it begins with a word which very clearly answers one of the adverbial questions. The word when is a time word. It tells us about when something is done. And if you look at this right here, adverbs can answer when. So this is a when adverb. It even has the word when that begins it. So this question is all about when something has happened, so it must be an adverb clause. This one is easy to get tripped up on. It uses the word than, and there are two things you'll just have to remember for the test. Watch out for the word than and the word as. And the word as. These two words can begin what are called elliptical clauses, and that's the answer here. This is an elliptical clause. The word elliptical is similar to the word ellipsis. And this is what an ellipsis looks like. It's 3 dots next to each other. And this word, ellipsis, communicates that there is something that has been left out for whatever reason, for probably to reduce the size of something. And it means that something is not said or stated. Now, this relates to the word elliptical because this an elliptical clause is a clause that has words that are left out at the end. Than Dizzy Gillespie has some words that are left off, and we're allowed to leave words off of this sentence because they use this word, either than or as, to begin it. So let's read this sentence, and I'll stop when here at the end of the sentence and see if you can figure out what words are left off. Do you think that Miles Davis is a more talented trumpet player than Dizzy Gillespie? Now, if you fill that blank with the word is, or even more, then Dizzy Gillespie is a talented trumpet player, then you totally have this mastered. There are words that are left off, and this is called an elliptical clause. So you're looking for the word than or as. An elliptical sentence that would have the word as would be something like, are you as tall as Jimmy? Question mark. And that would be elliptical with as, because the full version of the sentence, the one without the implied ... at the end, would be, are you as tall as Jimmy is tall?